What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I am going to be the one to admit it. I was wrong about burglars in The Lord of the Rings Online. So, sometime last year, I think I had made a video that was doing a tier list about the various classes and how solo viable they were, and a little whiles afterwards, I switched from the Glamdring server over to Peregrine because I just wanted to try the different server, try out something a little bit more casual since I wasn't going to be more hard focused on raiding. And since I had absolutely fallen in love with a lot of the stealth classes in Star Wars The Old Republic, I wanted to give Burglar a better try than just simply trying to get through some of the starting areas. And honestly, I will admit it. I was very, very wrong about how viable the burglars actually are solo. Now, one of the things I am going to talk about is they aren't the best class. I will definitely not consider them like an S tier solo class when it comes to getting through content quickly or being the most efficient and even just not dying. But one of the things that I am going to talk about with them is that they have a lot more self-sustainable abilities than what I expected. One of the things that helped me to see this was originally when I played Burglar, I had only played Redline because I had focused on DPS, thinking that in order to maximize everything that I was doing, I would want to just do as much damage as quickly as possible and essentially blow up enemies before they have a chance to even know what hit them. However, I learned that that was actually not a very efficient way to go about playing as a burglar. And I eventually had made the switch from Redline over to Blue Line, which is the Gambler, and this really opened my eyes to what the burglars were actually capable of doing. They have a ton of great abilities to help keep them alive. They also still have, their core stealth abilities, stealth being a very key factor to playing as a burglar. And so they become significantly more solo viable when you have the ability to stealth around the map, take whatever fights you want, and you really get to kind of dictate the pace of battle. Plus, one of the things that I just overall really, really liked about playing a burglar is the escape abilities that you have. You have an ability that just immediately puts you back into stealth. So if a fight is going really horrible, you can just pop that ability, you're right back into stealth, and enemies will proceed to not touch you. They won't be able to affect you at all. They'll actually just completely de-aggro and give you the ability to escape. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about things in the Burglar that makes it basically where I say it's no longer a D tier class for solo play. I originally had it pretty low, expecting it to be like, the lowest class for solo play, but I do want to just bring up a very specific point here, and that is burglars are still not a great class for soloing. So while they have a lot more abilities for self-sustainability, and they do have a lot of just better ways that you can keep yourself alive while you are questing throughout Middle-earth in those higher landscape difficulty areas, they still don't do a ton of damage. In fact, every time I have played as a burglar, I usually die a couple of times per day. And have really struggled at figuring out how to be able to maximize damage output. Now, that could just be that I'm not great at rotations. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know any complete rotation for burglars. Maybe that's something I'll have to look into so that way I can kind of learn what to do and play them a little bit more optimally. However, with what I do know about burglars and what I've been able to play, most of the time I get through a solid chain and there's still a good chunk of health left on the enemies. And then I'm spending more time just focusing on, okay, how do I keep myself alive long enough for my abilities to finish off of cooldown, and then I can go and go back to fighting enemies, specifically if I'm fighting in a group. Burglars in a one-on-one situation where you're only fighting one enemy, they do a great amount of damage and you can go through enemies pretty quickly. But getting through specifically a group is very difficult to do, and that's one of the things that I think really sets Burglars down from the other classes as a solo class. I think classes like Champion, Lore Master, even Minstrel just have a lot of better abilities to be able to deal with some of those groups. And if you get into a situation where you have a lot of enemies on top of you, they can do a significant amount of damage to you pretty quickly. And that's where you really have to rely on that blue line to keep your sustainability. As you can see in this footage here from my stream that I did in Goblin Town, I pretty much did everything that I could to keep a little bit of healing on me at all times, and that really helped to keep me from dying as much as I did. But I know that if I didn't have that, fighting some of these groups would become significantly more difficult, if not even close to impossible, because I just am not able to keep the damage output fast enough when you're being swarmed by a lot of enemies. But Burglars, honestly, they're super fun. They're becoming one of my favorite classes. I don't know if they have beaten Runekeeper in terms of my favorite class of all time, but they're certainly getting up there. I think that they have a ton of great potential, and I'm excited to bring them along on the raid tour because I know they are a very key point in triggering fellowship events. So I still will say, if you're doing grouping activities, playing as a burglar is going to be a very key factor. You're going to want to have a burglar on your rotation and in your party to help trigger those fellowship maneuvers, to help deal significantly more damage and get through a lot of those raid bosses in the most efficient way possible. I apologize for that. I'm yawning because I not been awake for very long at the time of recording this video. But overall, guys, I really do enjoy playing Burglar. I think they are a super fun class. Once I learn them a little bit more and can understand how their rotations work and the best ways to utilize them as a solo player, I think I plan on making a solo player guide for it, similar to how I did make one for my Runekeeper, so that way you guys can just kind of get an idea of what are the best ways to go about leveling a burglar if you're questing in Middle-earth and you're the only burglar out there, or you're just all by yourself not doing a lot of group content, but you still wanted to play as a burglar because you really like playing that stealth class. Then I want to make sure that I can give you guys the tools to be able to do that as best as possible. Overall, though, if you are really wanting to be the most efficient solo player, I still would not recommend burglar. I think that there are classes that are going to be better suited for clearing content in solo play at those higher landscape difficulties that will overall just be, I think, a better experience, unless you're really looking to try and figure out a way to challenge yourself while questing through Middle-earth. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. I know it's kind of a short video. I just kind of wanted to give my overall thoughts on the burglar class as I've leveled them up to level 47 at the time of recording this video, and just kind of talk about the things that I really liked and the things that I didn't like. There's a few other things that I didn't like, but I don't want to spend a bunch of time just being a negative Nancy on the burglar class, because that's just a lot of stuff to be talking about, and I always try to keep as much of a positive vibe as I can here on the channel. So if you want to know more about my thoughts, feel free to tune in live. I'm live most evenings right now throughout the summer, so you can come and hang out. I'll be playing a lot of Lotro right now, so yeah, make sure you guys come and hang out. It's been a really good time. But with that, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. I do want to give a huge shout out to all of my Ko-Fi supporters. You guys are the ones that help to keep this channel possible. My current Ko-Fi supporters that are monthly are Wolfguard and my grandma, so thank you guys so much for all of your support. And if you would like to support on Ko-Fi, there is a link to do so down in the description below. And with that, you are loved, you are valued, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we will see you right back here next time. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.